Good morning and welcome to the Morning Scoop for Friday, January 7th. This is your daily Buckeye fix. I'm Tom Orr. The Notre Dame game is in 239 days, the game against Michigan in 324 days. On Thursday afternoon, we learned about the second big coaching change to Ohio State's coaching staff. The Buckeyes parted ways with offensive line coach Greg Studrawa after 6 seasons. There is a lot of smoke around UCLA offensive line coach Justin Frye as a potential replacement, but nothing is official on that front just yet. Tony Gerderman and I did a whole episode of the Buckeye Weekly podcast about that move and what it could mean long term. You can find that by searching Buckeye Weekly or Buckeye Scoop wherever you're listening to this podcast. Also on Thursday, unsurprisingly, tight end Jeremy Ruckert announced that he would be heading to the NFL draft. And there's plenty of other stuff to talk about this morning as well. This has been a busy week at the All-American game in San Antonio. Buckeye Scoop's Kevin Noon joins me this morning. He's been down there all week with Mark Givler. Kevin, what was the reaction down there to the news about Stud's dismissal from the OSU offensive line commits?
Well, I guess I'll start just from being around the media types. There've been some whispers that something might be coming, but you never know until you know. And then it picked up steam, and then lo and behold, the report came out that he was out, and within 20 minutes, Ohio State confirmed that he was out. It was not the best of situations for offensive line signee George Fitzpatrick and commit Carson Hinzman, who were on the field of the Alamo Dome going through drills when the news came out. And unfortunately, I think the news got to them a little bit quicker than people would have hoped for in terms of not hearing from Ohio State about it. But both of these guys understand that it's a business, and you hear it. I mean, it does sound like a cliche, but I mean, there is something to it. You commit to a school, you don't commit to a specific coach. You just don't know if somebody's going to be there for your 3 to 5 year run at a school. So you better make sure you're comfortable with the school and the people around it. And both players, were very similar in their statements of saying that, that they're fully committed. I mean, George Fitzpatrick's already signed, but, Carson Hinzman, that was down to a final 2 schools. Wisconsin loses its offensive line coach, Joe Rudolph, to Brent Pry over at Virginia Tech. So it's like, well, Ohio State's in great shape. But I think anybody who'd been paying attention was like, well, I'm not so sure that stud is on stable ground. And, the quicksand finally was able to gobble him up at this point. And, he's no longer with the team. But, Carson's like, I'm a man of my word. I plan to, I'm sticking with my commitment, and I'm going to be playing for Ohio State. So you just kind of go forward.
Yeah, I would imagine that did not come as a complete shock to either of those guys. That is something that's been kind of floating around as a possibility for a while. I would imagine other schools who might have been recruiting them might have mentioned it in passing. So it's something that probably had not come completely out of the blue for either of them. I wanted to talk to you about a couple guys who sound like they've been really pretty impressive this week. The first one is defensive lineman Caden Curry. He's someone that whenever our guys went to see him, they came away impressed. Whenever they saw him in a camp setting, they came away impressed. It's just like everyone is, anytime anyone talks about Caden Curry, it's like, oh, wait till you see this guy. And it sounds like he has been pretty impressive down in San Antonio this week as well.
Yeah, I'd never had the opportunity to see him. I've always listened to Mark, to Alex, to Bill, and their comments there. And, they're some of the best in the business, so I've never had any reason to disagree with them. And you see Caden Curry, and he's not the tallest guy in the world, but he's unblockable. I mean, he just has been a nightmare for a lot of guys out there. I mean, really nobody outside of Ernest Green has really had any success against him. I did see in a joint practice, Tegra Shabola got the better of him once, but he's been a player out there, and I'm very impressed. And of course, there are going to be some people who are those stats junkies in terms of measurables and are going to be like, well, he's just too short. Well, just wait till you see him play. And I understand that, in this type of setting, it's still it's still very controlled all-star game and everything else. But I don't have any reservations in terms of or hangups that he's not going to be somebody who I think could be very successful at the collegiate level. Reshape his body a little bit, but you could say that really about any player at this point. But I think he's going to be very successful once it's all said and done.
Yeah, if you've seen him do it on the field against Indiana competition, and you say, well, it's just Indiana competition, what will he look like against, better national competition? Well, now you're seeing against better national competition. It's like, well, you haven't seen it on the field against that better national competition. So you'll get a sense for what he can do when he gets to Columbus a little later on this year. Next person I wanted to ask you about was quarterback Devin Brown. He was a rather late addition to the class, but another guy who you just anytime Mark saw him at the Elite 11 last summer and was impressed with him back then. How has he looked this year?
Yeah, he's been very strong. I mean, he did have a little period of one practice where he threw a couple of picks, but he's bounced back fine from that. He answered that later that day with some strong throws. I mean, he throws a very pretty deep ball today. He had a couple of great throws. I mean, I would say this Thursday practice was probably a little bit more casual than the other 2 days. They were doing certain install things, maybe a thing or two to keep an eye on for the game or whatever. But I mean, he just has a very fluid motion, flick of the wrist, throws it 50 yards. I mean, I had the opportunity to talk to a couple of his future receivers who, especially Kyion Gray's, who's on his current squad. And, did they just have nothing but glowing comments about him. And then I had the opportunity to talk to him after practice, and you can catch that interview over at Buckeye Scoop as well. And he's just a great kid, really seems to be well-grounded. Had an opportunity to talk to his dad a little bit up in the stands. I mean, coach's kid, just a fierce competitor, all these things that you want to see out of your quarterback. And one of the things that Devin told me that really kind of sticks out is just how excited he's going to be to learn at the side of CJ Stroud. Just talking about what CJ was able to do in the Rose Bowl and just everything there, and just so fortunate for the opportunity to be able to learn, alongside somebody who's getting it done at such a high level right now.
It will never stop being crazy to me how quickly guys go from like the new guy who, I mean, 4 months ago we were saying never thrown past the college level, and then now CJ Stroud is the crafty veteran who people can't wait to learn from, Heisman finalist, OSU school record holder, and potentially 1 year away from being off the NFL. Like somehow these college careers just keep getting shorter and shorter. Next thing I wanted to ask you about was a wide receiver not on Devin Brown's team. He's on the East team, Kojo Antwi out of Georgia. How does he look this week?
He's had a strong week. I mean, if you throw it anywhere near his catch radius, he's going to bring it in. I don't know if I've seen him drop a ball. I've seen him overthrown. I've seen times where they've not connected, but I don't know if I've seen him drop one. And again, so much of what we're seeing is against air. But if I throw you 10 balls, well, first of all, none of them are going to get to you because I got a horrible throwing motion. But if I throw you 10 balls, are you going to catch all 10 of them if you're out there running routes? I don't know.
Absolutely.
Okay. But, point being, Kojo's out there getting it done. He looks so fluid out there. He looks, he's really smooth. I mean, and he's not one of these big talker types of guys, but I've had the opportunity to talk to him now for like a second and a third and a fourth time after I had an opportunity to talk to him about a year ago. I'm really impressed with just his, as he's growing up and he's maturing. I mean, he just really seems to be the type of kid that fits the roster of wide receivers that Ohio State has. It seems as if Brian Hartline has something that he likes, and he's just cloning them over and over and over again. And Kojo Antwi is just going to be another one in that type of role of where he can play inside, he can play outside. He can, I think he's just going to do such a great job. And he's been very impressive from everything that I've seen when I've had the opportunity to watch East practice.
And then the last guy I wanted to ask you about was someone you just mentioned there, Kyion Gray's wide receiver out of Arizona. He's someone who, I don't want to throw a Jackson Smith-Njigba comp on anyone, but he's kind of climbing up the rankings the way Jackson Smith-Njigba, when he first committed, everyone was like, well, who's this kid? He's so, he's not ranked where they normally find wide receivers. Kyion Gray's has felt like he's sort of the same way. Now he's up to 47th nationally in the 247 composite, or the 247 ranking, sorry. And, it seems like Brian Hartline may have found himself another good, not necessarily diamond in the rough, but maybe a little bit of an under the radar prospect who is suddenly now a little less under the radar.
Yeah, if you're a top 50 guy, I mean, what kind of radar are we dealing with that you're not on it? I mean, that's crazy. But it does take me back to going out to Rockwall, Texas with Mark during a trip that we took several years ago when Jackson Smith-Njigba was kind of under the radar, if we will. And we just walked out of there. We're like, I don't understand it, how this kid is under the radar. And just from the small sample size I've had with Kyion Gray's, kind of feel the same way. And I understand that when you're talking about all the receivers in that class in the nation, you can only focus on so many of them. But Kyion Gray's is somebody, once again, just cue up everything I said about Kojo Antwi to a certain degree. I mean, he does a lot. He does everything really well, and I'm really excited to see what he may be able to do in the game on Saturday, because he's just got a tremendous skill set. He's such an athletic dude, and that's just one of those things. There's some guys that come out and say, I'm really good at just a couple of things. I think that if you could put, a racquetball racket in Kyion's hands, I bet you he'd go out there and beat you at racquetball. I mean, he's just the kind of kid that just excels at whatever he does.
As you were talking, I went back and looked, and Kyion Gray's was in October of 2020, ranked the 424th player in the nation. By December, he was up to 313. So this time last year, 313th in the nation. And then all of a sudden 127th, and then up. So yeah, he is definitely on the right. He's on the Brian Hartline trajectory. Let's just put it that way. You also got to talk to, that was kind of the current commits I wanted to talk to you about, but you also got a chance to talk to Kristen Miller. He is a top defensive line prospect who the Buckeyes are still pursuing for 2022, who is also maybe one of the most entertaining recruit interviews that I can remember. So what did you learn talking to Kristen?
We're all going to be working for Kristen Miller at some point. I'm convinced of that. He is just, he is so sure of himself. When I was that age, I certainly wasn't that sure of myself. I mean, he's so engaging. He just has this personality that lights up a room. If he didn't have football, I don't think it would really matter. I mean, but he's a tremendous football player, slowed down this week, not able to go through anything, wearing a brace on his right leg, but that should be short term. He should be lifting within a week or two. He's not ready to tip his hand yet, and that we shouldn't be shocked with that. He's got 3 visits coming out of this camp. He still has to go see Oregon, Florida A&M, and Miami are the 3 visits that he still has left. He's going to commit on National Signing Day. I did ask him if he enjoyed the recruiting process a little too much, something that I did ask Kojo Antwi, who's a fellow product out of the state of Georgia, and Kojo's like, yeah, I think he does. I think he enjoys it a little too much. But, Kristen isn't ready to tip his hand, even though he was wearing Ohio State shorts on Tuesday. But, could it be the bluff, the situation? I'm going to post a lot of graphics from Ohio State. I'm going to rock the Ohio State shorts out of practice and then pick somebody else. Or could it be the double bluff? Could he really? I mean, there's so much going on there. Nothing would surprise me with Kristen Miller. I would not be surprised with any of his 5 finalists, to be quite honest. And, if you sat there and put my feet to the fire, does Ohio State have a chance to land them? Absolutely. Will Ohio State land them? I don't know. I think I'm going to end up with burnt feet, because I'm not ready to make a pick on that one.
Yeah, if you have not seen that, go track that down. You can find the interview at youtube.com/Buckeye Scoop. But I think you may have had a front page post about it as well. You guys have also done a really great job. You and Mark are down there together. You have done a couple daily recap shows on the Gives in the Bank feed. Those are worth checking out. You can find those wherever you're listening to this podcast. Just search Gives in the Bank. You can find those shows a little more in depth on just a day-to-day basis with the guys they're seeing and getting a chance to talk to. Those are absolutely worth listening to. You also, as is tradition, did a little scoop eating out on the road. And I think everyone was a little jealous when we were out eating Mexican food in California last week at the Rose Bowl. Now it was my turn to be jealous. It looked like you had some pretty good barbecue down there in Texas.
I did, and I haven't put the piece together yet, so nobody's missed it at this point. Might drop on Friday, might drop on Saturday. Went to this very unassuming looking little smokehouse and had myself quite the meal. I'll just say this: when you put on a sandwich, brisket, pulled pork, and Texas link sausage, it's pretty damn amazing. And then I also had myself some macaroni and cheese with little crumbled up chicharrones on it. So it was quite the meal. Mark got himself a good meal, and that'll be part of the show as well. Walked out with a piece of, I'm thinking it's like peanut butter cheesecake or something. I mean, he would smile from ear to ear about it. I mean, it hit all the right buttons with that. But this place, 5 out of 5. It was a definite 5-star top 10 type of place. I'm really excited about sharing it with everybody when I do get this Scoop Eats piece put together.
Yeah, that sounds very much like a week where it's like, well, no one said your New Year's resolution has to start right on New Year's Day. You can when you get back from San Antonio, you can start thinking about that stuff. But you had a picture on Twitter and it was like, oh man, that looks real good. So yeah, I am looking forward to seeing that one. And you guys have been killing it down there. Tons of great coverage. You can find it on, like I said, on the Gives in the Bank podcast feed. Lots of stuff on YouTube. Lots of stuff on the front page of BuckeyeScoop.com. There is a ton to talk about this week. I feel like I keep saying that, but there is a ton to talk about this week. NFL draft declarations, coaching changes, all-star games, all sorts of stuff, all going on at BuckeyeScoop.com this week. Make sure you log on and check it all out. Thank you guys all for joining us. Have a great day. We'll talk to you tomorrow.